Hi, I'm Eric Loss, and welcome to another episode of Work Talk, where we discuss the most important issues facing your business with some of the brightest minds in the business. And today we're looking at the technology trends and innovations that are impacting finance today and in the future, and why CFOs and finance organizations need to pay attention and need to care. Here to break it down with us is Walter Porter, principal at Deloitte. Welcome, Walter, to Work Talk. So maybe as a place to start,
Sure.
how about a little bit more on your background and your experience at Deloitte?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. So I'm a partner in our financial strategy practice, and I help CFOs around the country across many industries live in this increasing regulated environment to grow their business, better analyze their business, all without adversely impacting revenue growth. So it's always an interesting time. I'll apologize in advance. I'm a finance major background, so I truly believe that the office of the CFO is the main artery of a business. So I'll try and maybe calm that during our conversations today.
So CFOs and finance teams are generally not the organization looking for change and disruption. Why then should CFOs and finance care about technology?
Yeah, great question. I think back to 5-6 years ago, what was really asked of a CHRO, and just more was asked of them, either from a talent perspective or retention perspective, succession, and that evolution that office went through. A lot of that is really happening to the office of the CFO right now. There's increasing regulation, increasing pressures around growth. The street is always watching what an organization is doing, particularly the office of the CFO. So it's incumbent upon them, whoever's in that office, to really pay attention to what are the changing dynamics within technology. So what better usage or enablers can I get out of technology? What is changing from an aspect where I can potentially reduce my cost from an infrastructure perspective? And then last and definitely not least, how can the office of the CFO be a steward to the organization and supplying data which can readily be relied upon?
What technology and trends are impacting the role of the CFO and finance organizations today?
I think about a couple, right? So there's definitely SaaS and cloud. And the impact there is you're not waiting 4 to 5 years, maybe even longer, to go through a major upgrade, right? A lot of leading cloud technologies you're upgrading twice a year, and even some changes on the weekends. But how do you digest and quickly put those in? Other things are obviously just mobility,
Sure.
right? Just the opportunity to have access to your data or any other data whenever you so choose, right? And then also in memory, right? So which kind of leads to machine and understanding, hey, this is data that we've looked at before, data that another part of the organization might be looking, and then bringing those really together. And lastly, closing that out, but just visualization and cognitive as well. The ability to actually see what you're putting together and speak what you're asking or what you're looking for. Definitely trends that we're seeing in the space.
So how do you think about analytics, and how do you see finance organizations really thinking about analytics now?
Yeah, information is now an asset, and really thinking about how do you maintain that asset, how do you grow that asset, how do you better leverage that asset. There's kind of 4 types of data as I think about it, right? There's internally structured data, which the office of the CFO has done very well with. There is internal unstructured data, which we've leveraged to some extent as well. Then there's external structured data, so I can see what other organizations are doing, or these are tax regulations that are impacting. Where the opportunity is really external unstructured data.
Right.
And how do you marry that with the data that you have today? And whether it's information that you're pulling out of a call center, whether it's trends that you've seen in another country, whatever that may be, but somehow marrying that with your internal data that you have today.
Are you seeing other sort of interesting use cases, like any data sets maybe that you've even heard a CFO or finance team just even sort of pondering that has maybe surprised you?
I talked to a client and they were looking at mining in other countries. And immediately fast forwarded to, well, if mining is down, then there'll be less reliance on us to manufacture the products that we manufacture today. In mining, they're probably third in the supply chain around mining, but they were paying attention to that and then trying to find other avenues how to diversify their business because they saw a downfall in another country around mining, which I thought was interesting. I spent a lot of time in the healthcare sector, and there's clients looking at as they expand to other countries, obviously what's the GDP look like of said country, and marrying that with their opportunities in those countries to expand outside the US.
And what role do you see? There's a lot of conversation around cognitive technology, machine learning.
Yeah.
So how does that interplay, when you're thinking about analytics?
Yeah, great question. I want to marry a given P&L with what is happening to the price of plastics. Does the machine understand, okay, well, if Walter is looking at that data, right, is Eric looking at that data? And if they are, then maybe I should find ways to connect the two of them or inform Eric what Walter may be looking at. And that is what we're going to see in bringing information together.
Yeah, that raises a good point because it's about what are the kinds of collaborations that not only can happen within an organization but should. And,
right.
And so to that point, how do the CFO and the CIO drive a technology agenda for the organization?
Yeah, relationships that I've seen work well at my clients, the CFO or the office of the CFO is actually a part of the roadmap. And so think about this. I think that it's like 20 or 30% of all CIOs report to a CFO. And the role of that CFO, not to say this is always, but really shouldn't be to look at what's going to be the IT spend for the year and figure out a way to get it down and become, and get it within budget, right? But really become a part of the roadmap and where IT actually sees the market going from what products are out there that can be leveraged, but then marrying that with, here are the demands to operate the business as we know them today, and here is a set of information that we don't have or that we can't get to, and maybe and trying to figure out the marriage really between the two of those. And I would tell you, my clients that do this well, I really see the CFO and the CIO lockstep very much in a partnership together.
What do all these changes imply for the kind of team that a CFO needs to build? And how do you build that team, and what skills do you look for?
We have done a lot of analysis with clients on what does their staff look like now, one from an FTE perspective, and two from a capability perspective. And long-standing, it's been the role of that office has been very much to process transactions, right? And produce accurate financial data. I still say you've got to have folks that understand accounting and finance, and they'll never be at least I think, they'll never be a departure from that, right? You still have to understand that aspect of the business. But that's really changing, and that it's becoming, the technology can do all that, right? The technology is built to record accounting based upon a business event. And so there's less reliance to push those transactions. What will be more important are more kind of data scientists, so folks that can interpret data and mesh data better for the leaders in the organizations to make faster decisions. But I've seen rotational programs work very well where that financial staff spends time in other functions or other departments really understanding what are the drivers of said department or functional area, and then bringing that information back to the office of the CFO. And that actually creates a bit of a partnership as well.
What advice would you give CFOs and finance organizations that want to take advantage of these new technologies?
First and foremost is be a partner with IT. There should be definitely a partnership between the CFO and the CIO, thinking about what's the underlying technologies we have today, what are the opportunities in the market, what information are we not getting today or do we not know about or that we'd like to get, and really partnering from there. Second, I would say be willing to to accept some failures. When we're making investments or we're making bets on where we think the market may be, or we're looking at trends, be willing to accept that the data does not have to be precise as much as our financial close documents need to be, or our books need to be. And I think that will change the mindset. I think all too often, right, CFOs or the office of the CFO, they're under so much pressure because of regulations and changes to regulations. That has been their primary charge, right? To make sure the books are closed and are accurate. But really, leverage the technology to do that, table stakes, right? And then find ways to leverage technology to get to information that we don't have today, and to make just better, faster, informed decisions.
It's now 2020. If I'm a progressive CFO, what technology should I be using?
First, we talked a bit about the use of cognitive tools, right? And the ability to really leverage that, bring the two of those together. Second is external unstructured data, and really data mining that in such a way that can be leveraged and carried forward. Third, technology is becoming so much faster, right? One, we're upgrading faster. Two, we're processing data faster, right? And the financial acumen of that, the office of the CFO, that is really going to change. So it's got to be a group that can understand and dissect data to get that back to those individuals that are making those decisions.
Exciting times for the office of the CFO, finance organizations, and the industry. Walter, thanks for joining us on Work Talk. We've been chatting about the impact of technology and innovative trends that are impacting finance. Thanks for watching another episode of Work Talk.